Chosen one, it is time to tell you everything, but not in the way your fear expected. This is not a warning meant to shake you. This is a revelation meant to steady you. The delays, the separations, the dreams, the sudden exhaustion, the strange peace after painful endings, the feeling that your old life no longer recognizes you, all of it has been speaking. And you were not brought into this moment by accident. There are certain hours in a person's life when the right words arrive, not because they were searching hard enough, but because something greater knew they were finally ready to understand what they once could only survive. For a long time, you were given fragments, a sign here, a closed door there, a relationship that changed without explanation, a dream that returned again and again, a strange feeling in your chest when you thought about your future, a calling that kept whispering beneath the noise, even when you tried to live like a normal person, even when you tried to ignore the feeling that your life was carrying a deeper meaning. You tried to make sense of it. You tried to explain why certain people suddenly felt distant. You tried to understand why certain rooms that once felt familiar now feel heavy. You tried to figure out why your spirit keeps reaching for something your current life cannot seem to hold. But the full picture stayed sealed, not because you were forgotten, not because you were being punished, not because you missed your moment. The full picture stayed sealed because you were still becoming strong enough to carry it. Now the seal is beginning to break. You are not falling apart. The false structure is falling away. You are not being punished. You are being repositioned. You are not losing your mind. You are learning the language of your spirit. And if you listen closely, this may be the moment your entire season finally begins to make sense. So stay with this until the end, because this is not just about what happened to you. This is about why it happened, what it protected, what it awakened, and what you must stop carrying into the next season of your life. By the end, you will understand why certain people had to leave, why your energy has changed, why your old life feels too small, why your gift has felt buried, and why the next door cannot open for the version of you that kept apologizing for being different. Not everything will be loud, not everything will be dramatic, but if your spirit has been asking for clarity, this is the kind of message that may place the missing pieces back into your hands. Because the first thing you need to understand is this: your life has been speaking before your mind could translate it. That tiredness you have been feeling, the kind of tiredness that sleep does not fully fix, may not only be physical. Sometimes the body becomes heavy when the spirit has been carrying what the mind refuses to face. You can rest for 8 hours and still wake up feeling like something inside you has been working through the night. You can sit in silence and still feel crowded. You can be around people and still feel alone. You can have nothing visibly wrong and yet feel like something deep inside you is preparing to change. That is not always weakness. That is not always laziness. That is not always confusion. Sometimes it is your inner world realizing that the life around you no longer matches the person forming within you. There is a reason your emotions have been moving like waves. One moment you feel peaceful, almost strangely calm, as if something inside you knows everything will work out. Then another moment, grief rises without warning. You remember people you no longer speak to. You think about years you cannot get back. You feel sadness for a version of yourself that kept accepting less, explaining too much, and shrinking to make other people comfortable. And you wonder, why am I feeling all of this now? Because your spirit is cleaning the room before the next season enters. Some emotions do not rise to destroy you. They rise because they are ready to leave. Some memories do not return because you are going backward. They return because your soul is asking you to finally take the lesson without carrying the wound. There is a reason old conversations have started to drain you. There is a reason gossip feels heavier than before. There is a reason certain voices make your chest tighten, even if they are not saying anything wrong on the surface. There is a reason environments you once tolerated now feel suffocating. The old you could sit there and pretend. The old you could laugh when your spirit was tired. The old you could answer every message, explain every feeling, carry every burden, and still convince yourself that being available meant being loving. But something in you has changed. You cannot fake peace as easily anymore. You cannot betray your knowing as easily anymore. You cannot keep giving access to people who only feel comfortable around the version of you that never had boundaries. And that is why some relationships have started to shift. This is the part you need to hear with gentleness. The separation was not always rejection. Some people did not leave because you were not valuable. Some people left because they were connected to a version of you that is no longer in control. They knew how to relate to the wounded you. They knew how to relate to the overgiving you. They knew how to relate to the version of you that explained everything, tolerated everything, forgave quickly, returned quickly, and abandoned yourself just to keep the connection alive. But they do not know what to do with the version of you that is becoming quiet, clear, and unavailable to chaos. That is why the distance hurts. It feels personal. It feels like abandonment. It feels like maybe you did something wrong. But sometimes distance is not proof that love failed. Sometimes distance is proof that your spirit finally stopped negotiating with what kept draining it. Chosen one, you have been grieving certain exits because you thought their leaving meant you were not chosen. But what if their leaving was part of the choosing? What if the door closing was not heaven turning against you, but heaven refusing to let you walk into your next season with people who would keep pulling you back into your old identity? What if the silence was not punishment? What if the silence was protection? What if the space that opened around you was not emptiness, but room? Room to hear again, room to breathe again, room to become honest again, room to discover who you are when no one is asking you to perform the version of yourself they prefer. Because there are people who love your light only when it keeps them warm, but resent it when it begins to guide you away from them. There are people who loved your kindness when it had no boundaries. There are people who loved your loyalty when it meant you would keep choosing them, even while they kept choosing your pain. There are people who called you sensitive because they did not want to admit that you were discerning. There are people who called you distant because they could no longer control your access. And this is where the guilt comes in. You feel guilty because you are not as available as before. You feel guilty because you do not want to explain yourself again. You feel guilty because part of you still wants to be understood by people who never truly listened when you were breaking. You feel guilty because protecting your peace feels unfamiliar. But guilt is not always a sign that you are doing something wrong. Sometimes guilt is the echo of an old identity that was trained to survive by pleasing people. You are allowed to become quieter. You are allowed to answer differently. You are allowed to stop giving long explanations to people who are committed to misunderstanding your growth. You are allowed to let a season end without turning yourself into the villain. You are allowed to protect what is being formed in you, because that is the next truth. You were not only being separated, you were being hidden. And being hidden can feel like rejection when you do not yet understand protection. It can feel like your gifts are being ignored. It can feel like your prayers are being delayed. It can feel like everyone else is moving while you are stuck in a private wilderness, carrying a promise that no one else can see. But hidden does not mean forgotten. Hidden does not mean useless. Hidden does not mean late. A seed is hidden before it becomes a tree. A foundation is hidden before it carries the height of a building. A child is hidden in the womb before birth, announces what has been forming in secret. And in the same way, something in you has been forming where applause could not reach it. Your discernment was formed when people showed you who they were, and you finally believed the pattern. Your strength was formed when you had to keep going, without the apology you deserved. Your patience was formed when nothing moved as quickly as you wanted, but you still did not completely give up. Your inner authority was formed when you had to make decisions without everyone agreeing. Your spiritual sensitivity was formed when the noise became too loud and you finally started listening to the quiet signal within you. This is why you had to be hidden from certain rooms, not because you were not ready for visibility in a shallow sense, but because visibility without formation can destroy a person. Open doors can become traps when the inner self is still begging to be validated. Attention can become a prison when you do not yet know who you are without applause. Success can become heavy when you still believe you have to prove your worth to people who never saw it. So the hidden season was not wasted. It was the workshop. It was the place where your false identity started falling apart. The identity that needed everyone to like you. The identity that thought love meant self-abandonment. The identity that confused being chosen with being constantly accepted. The identity that thought rejection meant failure. The identity that thought silence meant nothing was happening. But something was happening. It was happening beneath the surface. It was happening in your reactions. It was happening in your standards. It was happening in your ability to walk away without needing to win the argument. It was happening in the way you stopped chasing people who only returned when they needed your energy. It was happening in the way your spirit began to whisper, "I cannot live like this anymore." And that whisper matters, because for some of you, the next part of your life will not begin with a dramatic miracle. It will begin with an inner refusal, a refusal to shrink, a refusal to beg, a refusal to keep translating your soul to people who benefit from your confusion, a refusal to call dysfunction loyalty, a refusal to confuse delay with denial. And this is why everything has felt so intense. You are not just leaving a season, you are leaving a version of yourself. That is why the grief feels deep. You are not only grieving people, you are grieving who you had to be in order to keep them. You are not only grieving closed doors, you are grieving the fantasy of what you thought those doors would become. You are not only grieving lost time, you are grieving the years you spent doubting what your spirit knew early. But listen carefully. Nothing that taught you wisdom is wasted. Nothing that returned you to yourself is wasted. Nothing that revealed the truth is wasted. Even the pain you would never choose again may become part of the language you use to help someone else survive their own wilderness. This is the sacred difference between being wounded and being formed. A wound says, "This broke me." Formation says, "This showed me what was still unhealed." A wound says, "I lost something." Formation says, "I learned what could not come with me." A wound says, "I was abandoned." Formation says, "I was cleared, covered, and redirected." And if that feels hard to believe, do not force yourself to believe it all at once. Just hold this one thought inside your mind. Imagine your life as a sealed letter that has been resting in your hands for years. You did not know how to open it, because every time you tried, you opened it from pain. You opened it asking, "Why did they leave? Why did it fail? Why did I wait? Why was I hidden?" But now, instead of tearing at the seal, imagine your spirit placing the letter on a quiet table inside you. No panic, no begging, no rushing, just readiness. And as the seal begins to loosen, you do not ask, "Why was I punished?" You ask, "What was being prepared?" That question will change the way you see everything, because the deeper truth is not only that you were protected, the deeper truth is that something inside you has been waiting for the right time to wake up. There is a gift in you that has not disappeared. There is a clarity in you that life may have buried, but did not destroy. There is a sensitivity in you that the world may have mocked, but heaven did not mistake. There is a way your mind, your spirit, and your inner knowing used to work before fear, rejection, pressure, and survival made everything feel heavy. And later, there is something important I need to show you about the mind, frequency, and the hidden gift you may have carried since you were young. Because some of what you called confusion may have been a signal covered by noise. Some of what you called exhaustion may have been a system overloaded by survival. And some of what you called lost potential may not be lost at all. It may be dormant. But before that can fully make sense, you must understand this first. The separation was not the end. The hidden season was not the failure. The silence was not empty. The delay was not proof that nothing was moving. It was all part of the preparation, and if you have made it this far, there is a reason these words are touching something deeper than your thoughts. Your spirit recognizes what your mind is still trying to test. Your life has been speaking. The sealed letter is opening, and what comes next is not just the explanation of your past. It is the revelation of what is waking up inside you now. And what is waking up inside you is not something new. That is the part you need to understand. You are not becoming someone else. You are returning to something true that was covered for a very long time. There was a version of you, maybe when you were younger, maybe before life became so heavy, that could feel things clearly. You learned quickly. You noticed patterns before other people did. You sensed when something was wrong, even when everyone around you pretended it was fine. You had a kind of inner brightness. Not loud, not arrogant, not something you had to prove. It was just there. You could dream bigger, you could imagine more, you could feel possibility in a way that made the world seem open, alive, and somehow connected. Then, life happened. People disappointed you. Pressure entered your nervous system. Fear taught you to shrink. Rejection taught you to question your own value. Survival taught you to focus only on getting through the day. And little by little, the part of you that once felt clear began to feel buried. Not gone, buried. There is a difference. Gone means it left you. Buried means it is still there, but covered by layers you had to carry in order to survive. Covered by disappointment. Covered by overthinking. Covered by betrayal. Covered by the need to be accepted. Covered by years of trying to be normal in a world that never fully understood the way you were built. That is why this season has felt so strange. The hidden gift in you is beginning to press against the layers that buried it. And when that happens, life does not always feel peaceful at first. Sometimes it feels uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels like restlessness. Sometimes it feels like you are becoming allergic to your old life. You try to go back to the same conversations, but they do not feed you anymore. You try to laugh at the same things, but your spirit does not laugh with you. You try to stay connected to the same people, but something inside you keeps whispering, "This is no longer where I belong." You try to ignore the calling, but the calling does not ignore you. And this is where many chosen ones become afraid. Because when the gift starts waking up, the first feeling is not always power. Sometimes the first feeling is grief. You grieve the years you spent doubting yourself. You grieve the version of you that kept apologizing for being sensitive. You grieve the choices you made just to be accepted. You grieve the relationships that required you to abandon your own knowing. You grieve the rooms where you made yourself smaller so other people would not feel uncomfortable around your light. And then you ask, if I am waking up, why does it hurt? Because awakening does not begin by giving you a new life. It begins by showing you what can no longer remain in the old one. That is why your clarity may feel heavy before it feels freeing. That is why your discernment may feel lonely before it feels powerful. That is why your peace may feel like loss before it feels like protection. That is why your new season may begin with endings, not arrivals. You thought the sign of breakthrough would be everything coming together. But sometimes, the first sign is everything false, falling apart. Not to destroy you, to reveal you. Because your gift cannot fully breathe in the same space where your old fear is still making decisions. Your calling cannot fully rise while you keep trying to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding your growth. Your inner authority cannot fully speak while you keep asking for permission from voices that benefited from your silence. This is why you have been feeling the pressure. Something true in you is trying to rise, but it cannot rise through the old agreement. The agreement that says, I must explain myself to be loved. The agreement that says, I must be useful to be valuable. The agreement that says, I must keep the peace, even if it costs my soul. The agreement that says, I must wait until everyone approves before I move. Chosen one. That agreement is breaking. And when an old agreement breaks, the mind can panic. The heart can feel exposed. The body can feel tired. The spirit can feel both excited and afraid. You may feel like you are standing at a doorway, knowing you cannot go back, but not fully seeing what is ahead. That space is sacred. Do not rush it. Do not insult it. Do not call it failure just because it feels unfamiliar. There is a kind of preparation that happens only at the threshold. At the threshold, you learn what still has power over you. At the threshold, you learn what you are still afraid to release. At the threshold, you learn whether you truly trust the path, or only trust it when it gives you proof first. And this is where you need what I call the silence audit. Not an exercise you need to write down, not something you need to stop everything to do. Just an inner command you can carry even while you are lying down, walking, driving, or sitting in the middle of an ordinary day. Ask your spirit this: what has become loud inside me because I have stayed too long around what drains me? Let that question move through you slowly. Do not force an answer. Let the answer rise as a face, a place, a habit, a fear, or a pattern. Because there are three kinds of noise that bury a chosen one's gift. The first is the noise of people. These are the voices that make you doubt your own clarity. The people who always need access but rarely bring peace. The ones who make you feel guilty for changing, guilty for resting, guilty for having boundaries, guilty for not being the same version of yourself they were used to using. The second is the noise of places. These are environments that keep pulling you into an old identity, rooms where your spirit feels smaller, situations where you feel yourself performing, shrinking, pretending, or over-explaining just to survive the energy there. The third is the noise of patterns. These are the inner habits that keep repeating the old life inside you, even when the outer life is trying to change. Overthinking, people-pleasing, waiting for perfect timing, checking for approval, replaying old pain, letting fear sound like wisdom. And the reason this matters is because your gift does not disappear in noise. It gets covered by it. You can still be gifted and unclear. You can still be called and exhausted. You can still be chosen and emotionally overloaded. You can still have a deep purpose and feel like your mind is moving through fog. That does not mean you are failing. It means your system has been carrying too much interference. And this is where the next truth begins. Not every thought in your head is guidance. Not every fear is discernment. Not every heavy feeling is a warning. Not every closed door is rejection. Not every delay is denial. Sometimes fear speaks with urgency, but guidance speaks with weight. Sometimes fear pushes you to panic, but guidance calls you to move with clarity. Sometimes fear says, do something now or you will lose everything. Guidance says, be still long enough to know what is actually yours to do. This is what I call the resonance check. When a thought rises in you, do not only ask, is this true? Ask, what does this produce in me? Does it produce frantic pressure or quiet conviction? Does it make me hate myself, or does it invite me into honesty? Does it rush me into proving, or does it steady me into alignment? Does it make me smaller, or does it call me higher? Because true guidance may challenge you, but it will not degrade you. True guidance may confront you, but it will not shame you into paralysis. True guidance may ask you to release something, but it will not make you feel worthless while releasing it. This is how you begin to separate the voice of fear from the voice of formation. And this matters because the gift waking up inside you will require a different relationship with your own mind. For years, your mind may have been trained to survive, to scan for danger, to expect disappointment, to replay what went wrong, to prepare for rejection before it happens, to imagine failure before you even step forward. And when the mind lives in survival for too long, it can begin to mistake chaos for preparation. It can begin to mistake worry for wisdom. It can begin to mistake tension for responsibility. But chosen one, you were not created only to survive. There is a deeper state available to you, a state where your mind becomes clear again, a state where your spirit can hear without fighting through so much inner static, a state where creativity returns, A state where intuition does not feel buried under fear. A state where you begin to recognize the right path. Not because someone forces you, but because something inside you becomes quiet enough to know. And this is where I need to bring back what I mentioned earlier. There is something important about the mind, frequency, and the hidden gift you may have carried since you were young. Because many people talk about spiritual clarity as if it is only a matter of wanting it badly enough. But sometimes the issue is not your desire. Sometimes the issue is the state your mind has been living in. If your inner world has been stuck in survival, if your thoughts have been crowded, if your focus has been scattered, if your spirit feels like it is trying to speak through static, then you may not need more pressure. You may need recalibration. And I want to say this carefully. No tool can replace your faith. No sound can replace wisdom. No practice can replace honest healing, discipline, prayer, reflection, or the courage to make different choices. But sometimes, the right tool can support the state you are trying to return to. Sometimes, a tool can help quiet the noise long enough for you to remember that your clarity was never truly gone. It was covered. That is why this discovery matters. There is a 7-minute audio ritual called the Genius Song, designed around brain entrainment and the gamma state, the kind of brainwave often connected with heightened focus, creativity, intuition, and flow. And the reason I am mentioning it here is not because you need another random product thrown at you. It is because this connects directly to what we have been talking about, the hidden gift, the buried clarity, the sense that you used to feel more alive inside your own mind, the feeling that life, pressure, and modern noise slowly turned down something that was once natural in you. The way this audio is presented is simple. You put on headphones, you listen for 7 minutes. You allow the sound to support your mind in returning toward a clearer, more receptive state. Not through force, not through complicated rituals, not through pretending everything is fine, but through a focused sound experience designed to help the brain follow a different pattern. Think of your mind like a radio. For a long time, you may have been trying to hear the signal of your purpose while the dial was stuck between stations. Static from fear, static from old pain, static from other people's opinions, static from survival, static from the pressure to become something before you have even had space to heal. The Genius Song is presented as a way to help turn the dial, not to create your gift, but to support the clarity that helps you reconnect with what was already there. And I know some of you may be skeptical right now. You may be thinking, I have tried so many things. I have tried meditation. I have tried positive thinking. I have tried forcing myself to be disciplined. I have tried listening to relaxing sounds. I have tried to change my life, and still I keep feeling stuck. I understand that. And your skepticism is not a problem. It means you have been disappointed enough times that you no longer want to give your hope away cheaply. That is wisdom. So do not receive this as pressure. Receive it as an option, a possible support, a tool to explore if your spirit feels drawn to it. Because this is not about chasing magic. It is about supporting the inner state where clarity, focus, and intuition can rise again. There is a story connected to this that feels important here. A teacher in her 40s had spent years helping other people grow, while quietly feeling like her own mind was running far below its real power. She described it as if something inside her was operating at only a fraction of what it used to be. And after beginning the 7-minute practice, what she noticed first was not some dramatic explosion. It was ideas returning, decisions becoming clearer, mental fog beginning to lift, the feeling that the mind she remembered from earlier in life was not gone forever. That is the part that matters for this message. Not hype, not pressure, not fantasy. Return. Because for many chosen ones, the deepest pain is not only that life has been hard. The deepest pain is that somewhere inside, you know you were meant to operate with more clarity, more creativity, more spiritual sensitivity, and more inner authority than your current state has allowed. You know there is more in you. You know the fog is not your identity. You know the heaviness is not your destiny. You know the buried gift is still there. And sometimes a simple tool can become part of the way you begin clearing enough space to hear again. The original price for the Genius song is listed at $49, but through the link connected with this message, it is available for $39. And with it, there are also 4 bonuses included, including an audio track for children, a classic book connected to abundance principles, a guided visualization, and an infographic with habits for creating a better future. There is also a money-back guarantee, so if you explore it and feel it is not for you, you have that protection. I am saying this because I do not want this to feel like a risk-based decision. I want it to feel like a clear one. If you feel led to explore the 7-minute ritual, the only link is in the description and the pinned comment. And please be careful with this. There are many fake versions, copycat pages, and ordinary audio files using similar names. The only way to make sure you receive the original version with the correct audio, the bonuses, and the guarantee is through the link placed with this message. Do not search for random versions elsewhere. Do not try to find it on places where anyone can upload anything. If it resonates, use the link provided. If it does not resonate, stay with the message and continue receiving what your spirit needs. Because the tool is not the center. Your awakening is the center. Your clarity is the center. Your return is the center. The tool may support the state, but you must still choose what you do with the clarity when it comes. And that brings us to the deeper revelation. The gift waking up inside you is not only for your comfort, it is connected to responsibility. This is why the awakening did not come earlier. This is why certain doors stayed closed. This is why certain people could not follow you forward. Because if your gift had awakened fully while you were still controlled by the need to be accepted, you might have used it to prove yourself. If your clarity had returned while you were still addicted to approval, you might have handed your direction to people who did not understand your assignment. If your sensitivity had opened while you still had no boundaries, you might have carried everyone else's pain until you had no strength left for your own path. So the delay was mercy. The hiding was mercy. The separation was mercy. The silence was mercy, not because it felt good, but because it kept your gift from being mishandled by the version of you that was still learning how to protect it. That is the truth many people do not want to hear. They want the gift. They want the door. They want the visibility. They want the breakthrough. But they do not always want the formation required to carry it without collapsing. And you know what collapse looks like. You have seen people receive attention before they had character. You have seen people receive opportunity before they had discipline. You have seen people receive influence before they had humility. You have seen people receive love before they had healing. You have seen people receive access before they had discernment. And the very thing that looked like a blessing became pressure they were not formed enough to carry. That is why your path has been slower. Not because you are less chosen, because you are being built differently. There are assignments that cannot be carried by a wounded ego. There are doors that cannot be stewarded by a scattered mind. There are relationships that cannot be honored by an unhealed heart. There are levels of visibility that cannot be survived without deep roots. So if you have been asking why it took so long, this is part of the answer. The next season is not just about receiving more. It is about becoming stable enough not to lose yourself when more arrives. Because success can scare a chosen one more than failure. Failure is familiar. Waiting is familiar. Being hidden is familiar. Being underestimated is familiar. But being seen, being trusted, being chosen publicly, being asked to carry what you once only dreamed about, that can awaken a different kind of fear. You may want the door and fear the weight of it at the same time. You may pray for elevation and quietly wonder, what if I cannot handle it? You may want love and fear being truly known. You may want purpose and fear the responsibility that comes with saying yes. You may want freedom and fear who you will become when you are no longer shaped by survival. That fear does not mean you are weak. It may mean you finally understand that your calling is not a costume. It has weight. It asks for maturity. It asks for surrender. It asks for honesty. It asks for the version of you that no longer uses pain as an excuse to stay unavailable to your own life. And I hear this being placed on my heart. You were not hidden because I was withholding you. You were hidden because I was forming what would carry you. Let that settle. You were not hidden because nothing was happening. You were hidden because too much was happening beneath the surface for shallow eyes to understand. The wrong people would have called it delay. The right eyes would have called it development. The wrong people would have called it isolation. The right eyes would have called it consecration. The wrong people would have called it failure. The right eyes would have called it foundation. And now, the foundation is beginning to speak. This is why your old life feels too small. Not because you hate it. Not because you are ungrateful. Not because you think you are better than anyone. But because the structure that once held your survival cannot hold your becoming. You cannot keep living at the level of old fear when new authority is rising. You cannot keep apologizing for discernment when your assignment requires clear sight. You cannot keep calling yourself too sensitive when your sensitivity is part of how you recognize what others miss. You cannot keep begging closed doors to open when some of them were locked to protect your future. You cannot keep returning to the same confusion and calling it loyalty. The gift is waking up. The mind is clearing. The old noise is being exposed. The false agreements are breaking. And the next part of this message is where everything comes together. Because now that you understand what has been waking up inside you, you must understand who you are becoming. Not who they said you were. Not who pain trained you to be. Not who rejection convinced you to become. Not who survival forced you to perform. Who you are becoming when the sealed letter is finally opened. Who you are becoming when the hidden season has done its work. Who you are becoming when the gift is no longer buried under fear. Who you are becoming when you stop asking old rooms to recognize a calling they were never built to understand. Because the truth is this: everything happened to prepare a different version of you. And that version is not louder. That version is not colder. That version is not harder. That version is clearer. That version is steadier. That version is no longer willing to abandon the truth just to keep a place in someone else's comfort zone. And this is what we must speak about next. The version of you that can actually carry the next season. The version of you that can actually carry the next season. And that version of you will not be built from panic. It will not be built from proving. It will not be built from begging old rooms to recognize what they were never designed to understand. The version of you that can carry the next season is the version that no longer mistakes chaos for calling. The version that no longer confuses being needed with being loved. The version that no longer calls self-abandonment loyalty. The version that no longer uses old pain as proof that new doors cannot be trusted. Chosen one, this is where everything begins to come together. The delays were not random. The separations were not random. The hidden years were not random. The strange dreams, the emotional waves, the exhaustion that sleep could not explain, the sudden distance between you and people you used to feel close to, the way your spirit kept pulling you towards something deeper, none of it was random. It was all part of a larger pattern. You were being stripped. You were being hidden. You were being sharpened. You were being awakened. You were being repositioned. And the reason it had to happen this way is because the next season is not only about what you will receive. It is about what you will be able to carry without losing yourself. That is the truth many people never understand. They want the open door, but they do not want the inner weight that comes with walking through it. They want the relationship, but they do not want the healing required to love without fear. They want the visibility, but they do not want the maturity required to be seen without becoming addicted to applause. They want the calling, but they do not want the surrender required to stop using control as a shield. But you are being formed differently. You are not being prepared for a moment that flatters your ego. You are being prepared for a life that requires your whole spirit. That is why you could not stay the same. The old version of you might have received the blessing and used it to prove your worth. The old version of you might have entered the door and looked around for validation before taking one step forward. The old version of you might have finally been seen and then become terrified of being misunderstood. The old version of you might have found love and then tried to earn it by disappearing inside someone else's needs. The old version of you might have received an opportunity and then sabotaged it because deep down you were still carrying the belief that good things never stay. So the preparation was not cruelty. It was protection. It was mercy wearing the face of delay. It was love wearing the face of silence. It was guidance wearing the face of separation. It was wisdom removing what your wounded self would have kept choosing. And now, the deeper question is not, why did all of that happen? The deeper question is, who must I become now that I understand why it happened? Because understanding alone is not the end. Clarity is not the end. Feeling seen is not the end. The end of confusion must become the beginning of a different way of living. You cannot hear a message like this and return to the same agreement with fear. You cannot understand the purpose of your hidden season and then keep calling yourself forgotten. You cannot recognize that your gift is waking up and then keep burying it under everyone else's expectations. You cannot see that the old doors were closed for protection and then keep begging them to reopen. This is where the old pattern must break. Not loudly, not dramatically, not with revenge, not with bitterness, but with a quiet decision inside you, a decision that says, I will no longer abandon the truth just to keep a familiar life. That decision is sacred. It may not look impressive to other people. No one may clap for it. No one may understand it. Some people may even call it distance, pride, coldness, or change. But heaven knows the difference between pride and protection. Your spirit knows the difference between bitterness and boundaries. Your inner knowing knows the difference between running away and finally refusing to keep bleeding in the same place. So before the next season opens fully, you need a new inner protocol. Not a complicated ritual. Not something you need to write down. Not something that requires you to move your body or stop everything around you. Just a sacred inner process you can carry anywhere. I call it the Threshold Protocol, and it begins with 3 quiet questions. The first question is, what must I release? Not what must I explain? Not what must I force? Not what must I chase? What must I release? There may be a person you keep trying to convince. There may be an old version of yourself you keep defending. There may be a fantasy you keep grieving because reality did not become what you hoped it would be. There may be a fear you keep calling wisdom. There may be a place in your life where you are still holding the handle of a door that has already closed. Let the question move through you. What must I release? Do not answer from panic. Answer from truth. The second question is, what must I protect? Because not everything in you is meant to be exposed to everyone. Your clarity must be protected. Your peace must be protected. Your sensitivity must be protected. Your healing must be protected. Your next yes must be protected from people who only understand your old no. Your spirit must be protected from environments that keep pulling you back into survival. And your calling must be protected from the part of you that still wants permission from people who never carried your assignment. Protecting what is sacred does not make you selfish. It makes you responsible. The third question is, what must I practice daily? Because a new season cannot be carried by old habits. You may need to practice silence before reaction. You may need to practice discernment before access. You may need to practice one aligned action instead of 10 anxious movements. You may need to practice receiving peace without distrusting it. You may need to practice letting people misunderstand you without turning your life into a courtroom. You may need to practice blessing what left without reopening the door for it to keep draining you. These 3 questions will become a gate inside you. What must I release? What must I protect? What must I practice daily? And every time your old life tries to pull you back, return to that gate. Do not argue with the old pattern. Return to the gate. Do not explain yourself to every voice that feels entitled to your energy. Return to the gate. Do not panic when the new season feels unfamiliar. Return to the gate, because the next version of you does not need more noise. The next version of you needs clean alignment. And clean alignment will feel strange at first. It may feel too quiet. It may feel like nothing is happening. It may feel like you are losing people, when actually you are losing the need to be held by people who do not know how to honor you. It may feel like you are standing alone, when actually you are finally standing without the weight of false attachments. It may feel like you are becoming less available, when actually you are becoming more available to your purpose. That is the transformation. You went in needing validation, and you are coming out with discernment. You went in over-explaining, and you are coming out with peace. You went in afraid of being misunderstood, and you are coming out less controlled by the opinions of people who never saw the full picture. You went in trying to be chosen by everyone, and you are coming out willing to be faithful to the path that chose you. This is not a small shift. This is a death and a birth happening inside the same life. And that is why you must stop judging yourself for outgrowing what once felt safe. You are allowed to outgrow the version of yourself that begged for crumbs of understanding. You are allowed to outgrow the places where your spirit always had to lower its voice. You are allowed to outgrow the people who only loved you when you were easy to access. You are allowed to outgrow survival patterns that once protected you but now keep you small. You are allowed to outgrow the need to explain every holy thing happening inside you. You are allowed to become quieter without becoming colder. You are allowed to become stronger without becoming cruel. You are allowed to become more private without becoming disconnected. And you do not owe anyone an apology for becoming the person you were being formed to become. Let that reach the part of you that still feels guilty. Let it reach the part of you that worries you are doing something wrong because you are not as available as before. Let it reach the part of you that still wants to run back and make everyone comfortable. Your growth is not betrayal. Your boundary is not rejection. Your silence is not hatred. Your distance is not cruelty. Your healing is not arrogance. Your clarity is not pride. And your calling is not something you need to dilute just because someone else prefers the version of you that was easier to control. Chosen one, there are identities waking up inside you now. The seer is waking up. This is the part of you that recognizes patterns, not because you are suspicious of everything, but because your spirit has learned to notice what others ignore. The seer in you can feel when something is off. The seer in you can recognize when a room is smiling on the surface but heavy underneath. The seer in you can sense when an opportunity looks good but does not carry peace. Do not shame that gift anymore, but do not let it become fear either. Discernment is not paranoia. Discernment is clear seeing without panic. The truth carrier is waking up. This is the part of you that can no longer live inside false peace. You may try to pretend for a while, but your spirit will not let you stay comfortable in what is not honest. The truth carrier in you does not exist to attack people. It exists to stop you from betraying what you know. It helps you name what is real. It helps you stop calling poison love. It helps you stop calling confusion destiny. It helps you stop calling rejection a reflection of your worth. The wounded healer is waking up. This is the part of you that does not waste pain. You did not go through what you went through just to become hard. You went through it so one day your presence could become medicine for someone standing in a darkness you know how to survive. But hear this clearly. You do not have to bleed to prove you are healing others. You do not have to keep reopening your wounds to be useful. The wounded healer is not the one who stays broken for everyone else. The wounded healer is the one who lets healing become wisdom. The bridge is waking up. This is the part of you that can connect worlds that others keep separate. You can understand pain and purpose. You can understand spiritual sensitivity and grounded action. You can understand silence and speech. You can understand people who are still lost, but you no longer have to lose yourself trying to carry them across. A bridge is powerful because it connects, but even a bridge has structure. Even a bridge has limits. Even a bridge cannot become the journey for someone who refuses to walk. The spiritual warrior is waking up, not the kind that fights every person, not the kind that argues with every misunderstanding, not the kind that turns every disagreement into a battle. The spiritual warrior in you knows how to hold ground. It knows how to remain steady. It knows how to say no without hatred. It knows how to keep peace without surrendering truth. It knows that not every battle deserves your voice. Sometimes the victory is not reacting. Sometimes the victory is not returning. Sometimes the victory is not explaining. Sometimes the victory is staying aligned when the old pattern calls your name. And I hear this being placed on my heart. You are not being called to prove yourself. You are being called to become yourself. That is the difference. Proving is exhausting. Becoming is sacred. Proving asks, do they see me yet? Becoming asks, am I faithful to what is true in me? Proving chases applause. Becoming follows alignment. Proving is afraid of being misunderstood. Becoming accepts that some people will only understand the version of you they had access to. And now, you are being invited into becoming. So take this moment inward, not as a physical action, not as something you have to perform, just as an inner movement. Imagine the sealed letter again, the one your life has been carrying. See it resting inside you, not in your hands, not on a table, but in the quiet center of your spirit. For years, you tried to open it with pain. You tried to open it by asking why they left. You tried to open it by asking why it took so long. You tried to open it by asking why you were hidden. You tried to open it by asking what was wrong with you. But now, the question changes. Now you ask, what was being prepared? And as that question rises, imagine the seal beginning to loosen. Not because you forced it, not because you earned love through suffering, not because you finally became perfect, but because you are ready to understand without using the truth to punish yourself. The letter opens, and inside it, there is no accusation. There is no shame. There is no sentence telling you that you failed. There is only a simple truth. You were being prepared for a life that the old version of you could not carry. Let that truth settle. The old version of you was not bad. The old version of you survived. The old version of you did what it knew how to do. The old version of you protected you with the tools it had. But now, you do not have to keep living from those tools. You can thank the version of you that survived and still choose not to be ruled by survival anymore. You can honor the version of you that waited and still choose not to call yourself delayed anymore. You can love the version of you that needed approval and still choose not to abandon yourself for it anymore. You can bless the version of you that was hidden and still step forward when the right door opens. Inside your mind, let the old version of you place down the burden, not the wisdom. Keep the wisdom, not the tenderness. Keep the tenderness, not the sensitivity. Keep the sensitivity, not the love. Keep the love. Only place down the burden of believing you must suffer to be worthy of what is coming. Place down the belief that every blessing must be earned through exhaustion. Place down the fear that if something good arrives, it will leave. Place down the habit of shrinking before anyone even asks you to. Place down the need to make your calling small enough for old rooms to approve. And now, imagine the next door. Not wide open yet, just present, steady, waiting, not rushing you, not demanding performance, not asking you to become someone false, only asking that you do not enter as the version of yourself that still believes survival is your only identity. This is the threshold, and at this threshold, your spirit makes a quiet agreement. I release what cannot come with me. I protect what is sacred in me. I practice the alignment that prepares me. If that sentence feels true for you, you can place it in the comments as a simple declaration. I am ready, not as performance, not for attention, but as a marker. a quiet witness that something in you heard this message and recognized the season. I am ready, ready to release the old agreement, ready to protect the gift, ready to practice peace, ready to stop confusing fear with wisdom, ready to stop confusing delay with denial, ready to stop confusing separation with abandonment, ready to stop confusing hiddenness with failure, because now you know the separation was not the end. The hidden season was not the failure. The silence was not empty. The delay was not proof that nothing was moving. The exhaustion was not your identity. The sensitivity was not your weakness. The gift was not gone. The clarity was not destroyed. The letter was not lost. It was sealed until you were ready. And now the seal is open. This is why it had to happen the way it happened. You had to lose what kept speaking to the old you. You had to be separated from what kept feeding your confusion. You had to be hidden from rooms that would have celebrated your gift while damaging your spirit. You had to face silence until you could hear the quiet signal beneath the noise. You had to walk through delay until your worth was no longer attached to speed. You had to stop being chosen by people so you could understand what it means to be chosen by purpose. And this is the sacred truth. You were not being erased. You were being rewritten, not by shame, not by punishment, not by rejection, but by formation. The life that once confused you is starting to reveal its pattern. The pain that once made you question your worth is starting to reveal what it taught you. The delay that once made you feel forgotten is starting to reveal what it protected. The separation that once broke your heart is starting to reveal what it saved. The hidden season that once felt like failure is starting to reveal what it formed. And the gift that once felt buried is starting to breathe again. Chosen one, do not rush this next season. Walk into it with steadiness. Walk into it with discernment. Walk into it with humility. Walk into it with a clean heart and clear eyes. Do not use your new clarity to become hard. Use it to become honest. Do not use your boundaries to punish people. Use them to protect peace. Do not use your calling to feel superior. Use it to serve with integrity. Do not use your pain as an excuse to close your heart. Use your healing as proof that your heart can become wise without becoming cold. There will still be days when you feel uncertain. There will still be moments when the old pattern calls your name. There will still be people who do not understand your distance. There will still be doors that require patience. There will still be times when you wonder if you are really ready. But readiness does not always feel like confidence. Sometimes readiness feels like peace after panic. Sometimes readiness feels like no longer needing to explain. Sometimes readiness feels like choosing the aligned step even while your hands are still trembling. Sometimes readiness feels like not going back. Sometimes readiness feels like staying faithful to the quiet truth when the old noise gets loud. So when the old fear returns, remember the sealed letter. When guilt tries to pull you backward, remember the threshold. When confusion tries to cover your gift again, remember the signal beneath the static. When people misunderstand your growth, remember that not everyone assigned to your past has authority over your future. When the next door begins to open, remember that you do not have to enter as the version of yourself that begged to be seen. You can enter as the one who has been formed. You can enter as the one who has been refined. You can enter as the one who has been hidden long enough to know that visibility is not the same as worth. You can enter as the one who has learned that peace is not weakness. You can enter as the one who has learned that silence is not absence. You can enter as the one who has learned that delay is not denial. You can enter as the one who has learned that being chosen is not about being above others. It is about being responsible with what has been entrusted to you. And may the next season meet the version of you that no longer abandons yourself. May clarity return where confusion lived. May peace return where survival ruled. May courage return where fear gave orders. May discernment return where overthinking took control. May your gift rise without arrogance. May your heart heal without becoming hard. May your spirit stay tender without becoming available to every draining thing. May the right doors open with peace. May the wrong doors stay closed without apology. May the right people recognize your language without forcing you to translate your soul. May the old patterns lose their voice. May the hidden preparation begin to bear fruit. May the life you are stepping into be carried by the truth you have finally accepted. You are not falling apart. You are being formed. You are not behind. You are being aligned. You are not forgotten. You are being remembered by the path that has always known your name. And from this moment forward, do not call your wilderness wasted. Do not call your delay empty. Do not call your separation abandonment. Do not call your sensitivity weakness. Do not call your hidden season failure. Call it preparation. Call it formation. Call it the place where the sealed letter waited until your spirit was ready to read it. And now, chosen one, the message is clear. It is time to stop asking why everything happened only from the wound. It is time to start seeing what everything prepared from the wisdom. It is time to carry the next season differently. It is time to protect the gift. It is time to trust the clarity. It is time to release the old agreement. It is time to walk forward without dragging the chains of a version of you that already did its job. That version survived. This version carries. That version waited. This version walks. That version questioned. This version understands. That version begged for signs. This version becomes one. The seal is open now. The truth has been spoken, and the next door does not need the old you to force it. It only needs the real you to be ready when it opens.